Hey everyone, thanks for joining and apologies for the mix up with the Zoom link. Um, Thanks for joining and taking the time out of your afternoon or morning. It's 7 a.m. here in Australia, so we're really excited to talk about what we're up to and the questions that you've had. So my name is John. I'm the head of growth here and co-founder of Userback. We wanted to really make this a more casual setting, so we expect it to take about 20 to 30 minutes. And if you do have any questions whatsoever as we're going through, then please feel free to place those in the chat. So I'm just going to share, just making sure I'm sharing my screen. Excellent. Great. So basically, we had a lot of questions, and most of those questions actually related to what we're planning for our next 12-month roadmap. So I will cover those off at the end. But firstly, what I'd like to do is run you through some of the things we've been working on over the past few months, because we've made a lot of changes. There's been a lot of updates, and whilst we do sometimes try to tell through email, through direct messaging, sometimes things can be missed. So we'll start with just a quick update on the updates that we've been making to Userback over the last couple of months. Then we'll jump into the questions that we've received, and then we'll start to talk about the future state of Userback. So we've made a bunch of updates, and those cover the widget itself and the way that you manage the widget and the widget settings. We've updated the design tool, design feedback tool, the project settings and the way you manage notifications for your team, and also more recently adding a feature to allow you to add branding to your Userback account. So we'll jump into Userback and let's take a look at some of those settings. So to begin with, previously you would have had access to the widget changes through a more structured workflow. And what we decided to do was take that out of a dedicated workflow and make it widget settings more accessible. So from the widget menu, you can now select from a template. And the templates have been designed to give you a really good starting point for the type of feedback you're looking to collect. So you can change a template and from there go into each of the different cards, such as the feedback selection or the feedback form card, and fine tune the feedback widget for the type of feedback you're collecting on your site. And while we're actually here, you guys are the first to actually hear about this, but over the last couple of days, we have added 2 additional features to the widget, one of those being a custom field. And with a custom field, you can set up a checkbox for the time being. In the future, in the very near future, we'll be adding a short and long form field type into this custom field. And this is great if you're looking to collect consent for something, have someone agree to terms or a privacy policy when they're filling out this form. And you can add a link in here to your terms or privacy policy. And you can also change this to disclaimer text as well. So not having someone click through and select the box to continue. And that can be made mandatory or not. The next feature that we've added into the widget settings is a trigger. So normally when you add Userback to your website, the feedback widget will just display automatically. And so on page load, the widget will display. Now you can select a trigger, and by default, you'll have it set to page load. However, you can select a time on page in seconds, so you can change the amount of time as a delay before the widget displays. You can select to trigger the widget via the API. So we do have a fairly comprehensive JavaScript API that you can use to manipulate and control the way that the feedback tool works. And lastly, widget URL. So previously this was in another area of the product, but we've now moved it to the trigger. And what the widget URL does is it hides the widget on the page, and you can use the widget URL to display the widget to only people who have this. So when you select that, you'll get this URL. And when someone visits the page with that URL, it displays the feedback form. So that's one pretty big change that we made to the product recently. In the designs tool also, we made some significant changes and updated this feature. So firstly, when uploading designs, you can now actually upload multiple designs at the same time. And all of these designs will be added into a collection. And for some reason, I've selected images that don't display, that aren't working, but I'll do that again with different images. So we can, I'll add these three. So these will all get added as a collection. And when we go into that collection, you'll see that these three images are here. And this is great if you have multiple designs that you need to get feedback from a client or a user, and you then want to keep all of that feedback in one place, and you can then upload further revisions and ask the client to provide feedback on that. And this designs feature works the same as the feedback widget with the annotation tools available within the design. Next, we also added the ability to provide feedback on a PDF document. I don't have a PDF document available on hand at the moment, but this is really great if you're looking to collect feedback on brochures or quite large design files that you might have in catalogs. You can upload a PDF, and over multiple pages of that PDF, you can provide and collect feedback. And then lastly, the ability to collect feedback on video. So at this point in time, when collecting feedback on video, you're able to add bookmarks to specific points of time on the video timeline. In the future, we'll be looking to add the ability to annotate on the video as well. So if there's something that's not quite in frame or something that needs to be removed from post processing of the video, then you can annotate on the video specifically and pinpoint exactly where the changes need to be made. Next, I guess, more administrative updates to the product. We updated the project settings section to be a simple slide out. So at any point in time, you can come to your project settings and update that. And within the project settings, we added the ability to set a default assignee. So you may have someone on a specific project that that project belongs to them, and you'd like all of the feedback coming into that project to be assigned to that person. Well, you can set that up in the project settings and have all of the feedback assigned to that person. And the benefit of doing that is that when you have notifications configured correctly and integration set up, that person will, you can make sure that person's always notified when something comes in that they need to be on top of. So you can set the default assignee. And within the people menu, you also have the ability to manage your users' notifications. So if someone says they're not receiving notifications or they're not sure how to go and configure their notifications, you can actually come in and you can set notifications on their behalf. And that might be a client, that might be an internal user. So you can make sure that everyone on your team has the right notifications configured. And you can also do this in bulk as well. So there are bulk actions to set notifications for your users. And lastly, just the branding updates that we made recently. So in your account settings, there is a branding menu. And from here, you can add branding to the email notifications that are sent out. So you can add a sender name and a sender email, along with a color which will update the branding color of the email. And additionally, within the feedback viewer. So this is the feedback viewer that anyone who provides feedback on your website or a client providing feedback and they need to go and view that piece of feedback, they'll go to the feedback viewer. And because it is public, we felt like to increase the level of trust between you and clients and users, we wanted to make sure that that trust remains and those people going to that public feedback viewer, they recognize the branding, it's your branding, and they feel like they're going to the right place. So everything's more consistent with the workflow that they're on specifically. So those are some of the updates that we've made over the last couple of months on Userback. We're continuing to make lots of updates. The core platform is really important to us. Recently, we made some significant changes with respect to the back-end infrastructure of our product to make things work even faster and scale more effectively. So you may have seen an email go out with respect to whitelisting IPs and updating that as well to add more to your whitelists. So the questions that we received quite a number of questions, and it was really hard to pick out some of the more interesting questions that we'd received. A lot of the questions we received were about our roadmap, as I mentioned earlier. So I've got a couple of questions here that I've picked out, but if you do have any others, please add them into the chat. And we do have Lee here and Matthew, and they'll be more than happy to push any questions you ask over to me through messaging or answer them directly themselves. So one of the questions we get asked a lot as a business is how we got started. And I guess we were on the other side of the fence where we were working for a SaaS company and a marketing SaaS company. And in my role specifically, I looked after a specific group of customers, and they were agencies. And I had oversight over the website that they would go to as the squeeze page to sign up for a trial of the product. And we were going through a website refresh. I submitted a brief, and the marketing team, they put up a site and said, can you please provide feedback on the site? And there was a lot of feedback. There was content, there was images, there was branding challenges that were there. So I would write long emails to the marketing team, and I would take some screenshots. It took a long time to write out long emails and screenshots. And I ended up sitting with them and pointing on the screen and printing out pieces of paper and drawing on the paper and sending emails with snippets of content updates. And that process took a really long time. We tried to manage it in a spreadsheet, and that was even harder because spreadsheets aren't a great way to manage, I guess, a website project. So that process was very frustrating. At that point, we kind of realized, well, there must be a way to solve this problem in a better way. So we started to build out a very basic feedback tool. So that's how that's really how we got started, and we started growing the business from there. Another question, a couple of questions we received was around best practices and how to get started or how to make the best use out of the Userback tool. And I do have a couple of tips on getting the most out of Userback. It covers getting started and some best practices as well. So I'll just jump back into Userback now and we'll go through those. So my first tip would be that work out the best way for you on how to collect feedback. There's generally two ways that feedback can be collected within Userback. Firstly, via the extension, and second, via the widget. So I think that if you're collecting feedback internally in internal teams, and whether you're an agency or you're a larger corporate or a SaaS company, and you're using Userback for QA, bug tracking, or just UAT before you hand something over to a client on a staging site, then I recommend using the browser extension. Browser extensions are really easy to use. They're very accurate with taking screenshots, for example, and it's very fast to get set up. You simply go to the extension page, install the browser extension or add-on that you need for the browser you use. You'll set up that extension with an account key, and then you'll just add the domains that you're collecting feedback on. So it's very fast, it's very easy, and anyone can use it. You simply click the the extension, and it will load the tool that you need to use, whether that's annotate with screenshot or only video, or if you still want the routing menu to allow people to select the type of feedback they're collecting. If you are collecting feedback from external parties, such as a client or website visitors or users, then install the widget onto the site, and you'll just, most of you would already be doing this, but you would just add the script code to the body tag on every page you're collecting feedback on, and tweak the widget specifically to how you'd like that to display, including the type of feedback you're collecting, whether it's screenshots, video, just general. Add a contact us link in there. So that would be my first tip. And off the back of that, we highly recommend, if you are collecting feedback on a password protected site or an application, or even a staging site that the outside world might not necessarily have access to all of the assets, we recommend whitelisting our screenshot server IP addresses. And setting up cause policies. Sometimes this is something that's easily missed, and collecting feedback, and sometimes the screenshot doesn't display correctly. It's more than likely because we just can't see the assets. So having to whitelist is pretty common these days. My next tip would be to, when you're working with multiple clients or different stages of projects internally, create a project for every single client and even the stage of the project. So whether you have a development site, a staging site, the live site, and that way you can move through the process. So each client will have their own project. The feedback isn't getting muddied with other client feedback, and you can just make sure when you're logging into Userback, select the right project, and you'll only be seeing feedback for that project. Every single project has its own widget and own widget settings. Every single project has all the notification settings and integration settings. So you can set those up to, I guess, really fine tune your own internal processes. With that, on the setting up projects for clients, use the designs feature as well. If you have long websites for clients and you're in a staging stage and you're not yet looking to include the widget on a site, you can actually insert or create a design from the website. So if you come in here, you'll simply type in the URL and we'll take a screenshot of the full page. And this is a good way to field from the design of the site before you go to live feedback. So that's another thing I would recommend using to collect full page feedback. Another thing that I would do as a best practice, and if it's possible at all on your end, if you're working with clients as a design agency, is inviting them into their project. So we do have a client role, and the client role is great because you can limit the project access. So when your client logs in, they'll only have access to their feedback. And Userback really lets you, one, collaborate on feedback with the client, but also have an internal discussion with your own team that's away from the client. So you can set comments to be team only or internal only, and that way the client won't be seeing the comments that you're making and collaborating internally. My second last best practice tip would be to configure notifications and integrations. Personally, I don't necessarily pay attention to all of the notifications that are coming into my inbox. And that's because my inbox isn't overly structured and I get a lot of email. So what I do is, and the way I use Userback is I have integrations configured. So I set up Slack and I have a Slack channel to bring in all of the feedback that we're receiving. And I use that to keep it away from my email inbox, which is generally for other systems and one-on-one email conversations. And I'll configure, I've got Slack configured. When feedback comes in, I click on that, it takes me to the feedback. Now, we also have Jira internally. We use that in our development team. And if there's something that a customer has said, hey, we'd really love to be able to do this thing, or this isn't working right now, what I'll do is I will use Userback to triage the feedback that's coming in. I click from Slack, I view the feedback, and then I push that feedback to Jira. When you configure your integrations, there'll be an option there that says, would you like to automatically send all feedback to this integration, or select specific feedback to send over. It's completely up to you on how you do that. And for me personally, being able to triage is really important because I don't want to be bombarding our development team with lots of tickets and requests. The other thing that you can do if you don't see an integration that is available natively, we do have a Zapier integration, and because there's so much flexibility with Zapier, they do have their own Zap called Filters by Zapier. You can use that to do some more advanced integrating where you're able to send feedback over to Jira and set the assignee or set the task or add a comment. You can do some more advanced connecting there. And lastly, what I would recommend doing is setting up the categories in your projects and the workflows. So with categories, categories are tags effectively, but you can use these to categorize the type of feedback that's been collected. So set up your categories. The category field can actually be added to the feedback form. So you can add that in here if you're using it internally and you need people to be selecting a category, or even a client, you might have a category there as content update. You could get them to select that. And then the actual feedback workflow. So you can come in, edit the workflow and match the workflow that you would use internally. So those would be my, my best practice tips and the best way to get set up and get started. So we had a question about a single email digest, and I guess it's reflective of the way I feel about email notifications as well, and why I don't have them set up on my end. And coincidentally, I was talking about this with our product manager, and we said, you know, it'd be really great if we could just consolidate all of the notifications into a single email report. Let someone select from weekly, monthly, fortnightly, and just have one email that comes through with all of the updates. So that is something that we're looking at, and we're looking at the best way to manage that. Sometimes people will need to receive every single notification, but for those people who are receiving hundreds of pieces of feedback, they might not be the person that's managing that. And they don't want to turn off the notifications, then having an email digest would be a really great feature to have. We were asked about our mobile focus, and are we looking to build a mobile app? It's something that we've definitely spoken about internally, and whilst it's not on our roadmap specifically, we're still trying to work out what a mobile app might look like for us, and how that would work. And is it collecting feedback on mobile apps, or is it a mobile app where you can go to a page and provide feedback on that page, or is it voice feedback? We're still trying to work through that. At this stage, it's not a real focus from an app perspective, but one thing that is definitely a focus for us is ensuring that our existing product is 100% mobile first. So that means that when you visit a page on a mobile device, whether that's a phone, a tablet, a laptop, or a PC, a desktop, then you get the best experience possible from our tool, and you can provide feedback without it looking like it was an afterthought. So mobile first is definitely something that we will be focusing on over the next 12 months. And one of the interesting questions we received was around app guidance tools, and whether or not we'll be looking to introduce app guidance tools into our product. I wasn't 100% sure whether that meant, are we going to be building app guidance tools for our customers to use in their own products, or whether we'd be introducing that app guidance tools into our own product for users to learn how to use our tool and navigate. So us building that functionality is not something that we're focused on. It's not our core business. And in terms of introducing app guidance into our product, we strongly believe that app guidance tools are great when you have a really complex product and some things, some workflows are difficult to navigate. But in our mind, we would like to try to solve those challenges through great UI, through good user experience, and make it easy for people to navigate and find the features that they need to and implement those as easy as possible. So at this stage, we're not looking to implement any app guidance tools in the product. So lastly, the future state of Userback. So we here at Userback, we think of visual feedback, and when we think of that, what we're really trying to do is bridge communication between people, designers, developers, website owners, with their users, their clients, and their website visitors. And that's it really. But the challenge is that everyone communicates differently and has varying requirements. So that's our real focus for the next 12 months is making sure that the customers that we have access to the right tools to communicate with their people in the best way possible. And already Userback is a really great tool for collecting feedback from clients, from users, internal teams, on design websites, collecting bugs. But what we're looking to do is really focus on each one of those specific use cases to provide a feedback platform that you can customize to your needs. So here's some of the things that we're planning to deliver over the next 12 months. Of course, our core product is really important. So improving the core product is always a #1 focus for us. And that means ongoing updates to the user experience, core Userback functionality, better workflow management, more flexible widget options, and better quality screenshots. Already with the widget options over the last couple of days, adding more flexibility into that for you. Deeper functionality into each of the use cases that we have. So with bug tracking, for example, collecting console reporting or any JavaScript errors, being able to click on a bug report and actually physically see the steps that a user took leading up to the point in time where they reported a bug. So watching what they were doing using video and making that so seamless that they may not necessarily realize that that was happening. So having been on the end of reporting a bug and explaining something to a developer, 9 times out of 10, they will come back and say, can you show me how you replicated that bug? So we're just trying to speed that process up and just make that communication process a lot better. With user acceptance testing, we have lots of customers using us for this use case. But what they'll do is they'll set up their user acceptance tests externally, and they'll have those questions set up. And they'll have the user go through those tests, and then from there, they'll fire the Userback widget at the end. So being able to manage that process from setting up the tests to collecting the feedback is something that we're looking at. Improvements to the design feedback. So introducing an approvals workflow so that the client can approve a design before that that's something that you can pass on. And more ways to use video. So we've already seen video feedback being a really popular tool within our product. It's great for bug tracking. It's great for talking through something that might be difficult to just type with text. And that's something that we're going to be exploring more ways to use that and smarter ways to use it as well. In the next couple of months, we will have quite a thorough focus on integration. So making the existing integrations deeper so that you can make sure that the tools that you're using are synced with Userback. So when something is updated in product B, update it back in Userback. So a two-way sync there. And also adding more tools to our existing native integration. So if you do have any products that you are currently using internally that we don't support with our native integrations, then please always reach out to us, let us know what you're using, and we do take all feedback seriously, add it to our internal list of feature suggestions, and we review it regularly. So please let us know what tools you're using and you'd like to see integrated. We're also looking at adding more automation functionality to the product. So for example, being able to automate the widget and being able to do things like when someone clicks on a button on my website or completes a specific workflow, then fire the widget. And the easiest example I can think of where that's relevant is at the end of an e-commerce shopping workflow, where having someone provide satisfaction of the purchase process. Tying that back to video and how we may look to use video is asking or prompting someone to provide a video review of your product or service, and they can record a video review on that, and that recording is then collected back into Userback. Live collaboration. So being able to collaborate on a design or a website and provide feedback in real time with others and just whiteboard changes on a site or a piece of feedback. So that's something that we're looking to update. And lastly, something that we're really excited about actually in the second half of next year is investigating feedback-driven roadmaps. So being able to collect feedback, whether that's internally or from a client, and set up a roadmap that's driven by the feedback that you're collecting. Of course, you'll be able to add other items to the roadmap and have people vote on things that are being pushed onto the roadmap and resolve those. But having a roadmap there that allows people to see what you're working on and where things are going. So that's everything that I have in terms of our future state. The questions that you've asked, I have seen that there's been a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm just going to just stop my sharing now. And I'll just go through the chat quickly to see if there's anything on here that I might be able to answer for everyone in more detail. Yeah, the email digest received some comments, which is great. And there's nothing else that hasn't been answered by Lee, which is great. Thank you, Lee. If you ever need to stay in touch with us, please, you can easily reach out to us via your account, where you click help and click feedback. We respond to all feedback that comes in here. We try to use our app as much as possible, so you will receive responses from there. You can reach out to us on Twitter. We do have a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, and my email address is here. So if you want to speak to me directly or organize a time to chat about your specific way you're using Userback, or something that you're not sure if you can use our product for, please reach out to me at any stage. I'm here and happy to help anyone. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. I'll just hang around here for another couple of minutes if anyone has any questions or would like to chat to me personally.